Welcome everyone to my channel Fruit of the Wheel. I'm Radhika, and in this video I'd like to talk about how to truly make the best of retrograde seasons, how to receive what they have to offer with the greatest benefit. Very often, advice given on how to deal with retrogrades are centered on waiting, pausing, being cautious, mistakes or misunderstandings, confusion, and the past resurfacing. This may contribute to an energy of hesitation, impatience, and anxious anticipation. But more importantly, this overshadows the actual purpose of the retrograde. A lot more focus is given to what should not be done or what can go wrong during a retrograde, when what we need to be giving our attention to is how a retrograding planet is working to increase our power, our authenticity, and our grace. Most of the year we spend with multiple planets in retrograde because the outer planets remain so for months. For example, this year we only had 3 months with all planets direct, from the end of January until the end of April. The effects of the outer planets are more subtle and gradual, but when the personal planets go retrograde, we experience it more specifically and directly, and the opportunity to participate in the transformation of self, circumstance, and the collective available to us at such times is a gift that shouldn't be neglected. I've done videos on the Venus retrograde in Leo and Mercury's retrograde in Virgo individually, but we have this little overlap here with both of these personal planets in retrograde at the same time, until the 3rd of September when Venus goes direct. The shadow period overlaps for longer, so we still get to work with these energies after that. Mercury, how we think, and Venus, how we feel, the two aspects of consciousness that define the human experience, want us to recognize something and further develop it to enhance the beauty of these lived experiences. It is through the inner kingdom of thought and feeling that we create the external manifestations of life. Mercury is the planet that retrogrades most often, while Venus is the planet that retrogrades least often. Their retrogrades overlapping can sometimes happen during consecutive years, mostly every couple years, but sometimes with very long gaps, such as between 2000 and 2016 when they didn't overlap once. In any case, there is always significance in every type of celestial movement for us to understand if we so choose. Right now, our mental and emotional workings require assessment and renewal. The easiest way to do that is by simple observation of the conditions of our lives and how content we are with them. The pause that we either willingly take or is perhaps enforced upon us during retrogrades gives us the time and space necessary to see things with more clarity once we use our subjective experiences to gain a more objective perspective on the situations that are relevant to the topic of the retrograde. This, of course, depends on the placements of the planets and signs in our birth charts. What I mean by that is during retrogrades, our inner workings often come to the surface in more obvious ways, either through interaction with others, engagement in certain activities or events, or just by having thoughts and feelings about, reactions and responses to conditions or circumstances that prior to the retrograde had not made themselves known, at least not with the strength with which they appear now. With Venus, our desires are felt more intensely, even if perhaps triggered by the pain of the lack of a desirable circumstance. We sense our need for love, our need to be in connection with someone or something that vibrates in the heart. Our relationship to whichever forms of abundance are relevant to the sign and houses in the chart come into question, and the quality of our emotional state is made clearer than before. Whatever we truly value in terms of pleasurable, comfortable, beautiful, joyful, loving living, we have the opportunity to understand more deeply. With Mercury, our thinking apparatus, which is the basis of our functionality as conscious beings, is under evaluation. How we gather and process information and the choices we make with that information depend on the quality of our perceptions of reality. Everything is information, Ultimately, our feelings, our physical functions, nature, every event or non-event is data. Mercury determines what is relevant or irrelevant of that data in regard to our purposes, our ideals, our visions, our wants, and our needs. Mercury's role is manifold. He was the only god who could travel to all the realms, including the underworld, and return. He goes everywhere, gathering everything, has access to everything, and then conveys that information to all the other parts that make us these layered entities. The message he conveys, however, is shaped by how he perceives the information, and that perception is what Venus will give meaning to through feeling. And then that feeling, the value she ascribes to that information, Mercury again registers in his archive, and this then further shapes how he perceives reality. This feedback loop between our thoughts and feelings, Mercury and Venus, is therefore essential to understand because we create and manifest based on the quality of our thoughts and feelings. So as I mentioned in the Mercury in retrograde video, it makes absolute sense that this planet goes retrograde so often because we need to be checking in with the state of our perceptive tendencies consistently enough to ensure that we are operating in alignment with our true individual and collective purpose, which is always one of love, creativity, harmony, and abundance. During retrogrades, we basically get to see where we might need more of that, and less of the opposite of that loveliness, and recalibrate ourselves accordingly. Venus in Leo and Mercury in Virgo. The retrogrades are in consecutive signs. Virgo comes after Leo. This natural energetic progression demonstrates how we take the magnificent flame of Leo and bring it back down to Virgo's earth, how we take creative spirit and actually mold it into refined creation. Venus in Leo has been working on our hearts, awakening and strengthening our passions, our recognition of our uniqueness, and our right to express that, but from a place of authenticity and not just for recognition. She's been showing us our need for playful freedom, the joy of being our own beloved, our own favorite creation, the importance of both showing and receiving affection, how we want the world to feel generous, abundant, and loving, which of course begins with us embodying that feeling ourselves, and then realizing that all this wonderfulness that we are becoming needs to be shared. How many we can warm, uplift, and inspire through our Leo power. Leo compels us to do, to put ourselves out into the world, to be seen and acknowledged. And since this is happening through retrograding Venus, there is a tenderness, a vulnerability, a deep feeling to this experience. We don't think we need to be more confident. We can feel how we simply must. Anywhere Leo is feeling weak is very uncomfortable. And that unease, that ache is so precious because it births the very thing our hearts know must now arrive and burst forth into being. Mercury gathers this newly acquired information and making sense of it through Virgo puts all this energy to work in ways that make the best use of it. Since he's retrograding, however, he's paced. He's not rushing forth with his fluttering wings at his heels. There is a more specific method required at this time to process what Venus in Leo has us feeling and to then apply that knowledge masterfully. There's some retracing that needs to be done first, in the house adjacent to our Leo house or houses, and then all the transformation that has been taking place in our desire nature, in our abundance frequencies, in our creative inspirations and inclinations, in our courage to embrace ourselves, and the revealing of the sacred flame of joy that must always be tended within, will be poured into the way we work and the reason we work towards anything, because our perceptions and beliefs have changed tremendously. This change began with Venus's retrograde, and it is completed beautifully with Mercury's retrograde. Any leonine tendencies towards exaggerated performance, boastful, misplaced pride, attention-grabbing and dominating behavior that overshadows others, will be handled by not only Mercury, but the Sun in Virgo as well now. Virgo cares about the quality of what is created, the precision and accuracy of its making, not the pomp and splendor. We become humble in Virgo season and get to take a good look at how we can actualize ourselves in ways that serve others, benefit others. It is neither enough nor appropriate to simply bask in the glory of ourselves. Inspiration becomes focus. Performance becomes intentional practice. Here we back our confidence with results. We produce something truly worthy of our Leo pride, and yet we are no longer concerned with that feeling. We are immersed in the work. Virgo's tendencies of micromanaging, worrying about outcomes, perfectionism, its controlling nature due to a lack of faith in others to complete tasks correctly, and criticism may very well come up during this retrograde, but we'll be armed with a few months of Venus traveling through Leo, which is absolutely wonderful, because we've been receiving the lessons and gifts of Leo's playful, joyful nature, its easy self-assuredness, its natural willingness to self-express, its ability to hold love with great force. This fresh, light, and loving energy is what keeps us from going down that potential path of unnecessary self-doubt and self-loathing. It keeps anxieties at bay and frees us from the torment of perfectionism. This beautiful flame of growing love and joy within us has been given life by the goddess, Venus, and now Mercury in Virgo consecrates this. In the last video, I spoke of Virgo and the Vestal Virgins, how the energy of Virgo is related to ritual and sacred rites. The domain of alchemy, magic, and rituals also belongs to Mercury or Thoth, the Egyptian god whose many attributes were appropriated by the Greek Hermes and Roman Mercury. All pantheistic worship involves rituals invoking the energy of the deity, and many practices use the finest of what the Earth Mother offers. Fragrances from incense, flowers, jewelry, pastes of beautiful colors and textures, offerings of food and drink, bathing and anointing with essences, oils, milk, the lighting of candles, the playing of music, the chanting of sounds and words that have special meaning and power. All this beauty, devotion, and offering of the best is but symbolic of how we treat something we consider sacred, and that the true deity lies within, the sacred self, which is what must be shown such care, such love, such regard. Mercury retrograding in Virgo, amongst other things that are already mentioned in the previous video, is also a special opportunity to perform sacred ritual for the sacred flame that has been ignited by Venus in Leo. All that adornment, all that lusciousness given to the true self in the form of thoughts, Mercury, life-giving thoughts that cultivate a most glorious garden within, which ultimately translates to the one we frolic through in the external world. Virgo has the patience and the skill to design and grow the most precise kind of landscape of one's choosing, and it is the feelings and desires of Venus that determine that choice. This is what these retrogrades have to offer at this time. When we work with the energies of the planets, which are external manifestations of our own inner cosmos, we have access to the powerful magic of the love that is constantly growing within us.